As I mentioned, my first book, Nothing is True and Everything is Possible, was about Russia. And I already saw a lot of the things that we talked about, especially this idea that truth doesn't matter, that truth has no value, manifests itself there. And even though that process has been made worse by the internet, I already saw it playing out on legacy media. I think to understand that, we have to marry the technological crisis with a broader kind of political and cultural crisis. So when I was living in Russia between 2001 and 2010, the Kremlin was reorganizing its propaganda. They were moving away from a Soviet model where they try to kind of insist on a higher communist truth. They knew the truth. They would ban any kind of evidence that went against the truth, like arresting my father for books about the prison system. And they would insist that you had to agree with their truth, that the Communist Party was right, that it was leading the country to a better future, that the ideal socialist utopia was around the corner. Now, everyone knew that their truths were lies. I think that worked against them. There was this credibility gap in all of the late Soviet period between the regime and people's experiences. They knew that they weren't heading to a socialist utopia. So in that competition for truth, they ended up losing. When I lived in Russia, Kremlin wasn't trying to do truth. They'd inherited this very cynical population. And like all good propagandists, they worked with that cynicism. So instead of saying, we know the highest truth, they just say, no, there is no truth. Everybody's lying. We're lying. The Americans are lying. We do propaganda. The Americans do propaganda. What's the difference? I was there in the aftermath of Iraq. It was a very easy argument. So you work with people's cynicisms. You don't try to insist that you know a higher truth. You make them doubt everything. That's the title of my book. Now, I suppose in Russia, there were specific reasons why that works so well, but I've seen it rolled out country after country after country. And it makes sense. If you're a propagandist, you can't control the information environment. You can't control it in a democracy. You can't control it in a dictatorship. You can't control it in a democracy. And so you see doubts instead. Every time Donald Trump, and I'm taking no position on Donald Trump, whether he's good or bad, I'm just sort of relaying his narrative strategies. He'd do this all the time. It's like, well, I just don't know. You just don't know what happened to Hunter Biden's laptop. Well, you don't know. And that was his favorite, just like, eh. And if you watch Fox News or Kremlin TV channels, it's very, very similar. It's just undermine faith in the other side. Often with very good arguments, you know. Watching Kremlin propaganda or Sean Hannity, it's very, very similar. The Kremlin propaganda will undermine your faith in the BBC or CNN, and Sean Hannity will do that to CBS. Often, they don't have to lie. They often do it very well. But the end point is, and here's a better version of how you get to the truth. The conclusion always is, you'll never find the truth. We live in a world where you can trust no one. And what replaces kind of ideology and truth is a conspiratorial worldview. Conspiracy replaces ideology. Yes, there's no clear idea about democratic capitalism or communism. There's no kind of normative debate between big ideas. But there is a conspiratorial world. The conspiracy is always changing, both in Russia and in America. You know, here it moves from Pizzagate to QAnon to the election was stolen. It doesn't matter. All that matters is this conspiratorial worldview. In Russia as well, it's constantly moving, constantly developing. The most famous TV show host in Russia, political TV show host in Russia, Dmitry Kiselyov, his catchphrase is, a coincidence? I don't think so. And he'll just take any story and turn it into a conspiracy theory. It's actually quite darkly balletic the way he can do that. And conspiracy theories, in that they replace ideology, serve a lot of its functions. They create group identity, a sense of us versus them. They explain the world in certain ways. They They make you feel kind of clever if you're in on the conspiracy. At the same time, they kind of excuse your own failure because it's not your fault that you messed up your life, it's the conspiracy. So it has all these very, very functions that ideology may have served before. Now, I keep on thinking, why has truth disappeared so effectively? Why, why did we as audiences give up on the truth and let it be replaced with doubts and conspiracy thinking instead? I think it might actually be very, very related to a change in the value of truth from the ideologies that we used to debate about in the 20th century and this new world where conspiracy theories have replaced ideology.